everyone.
Welcome back to White Sparrow Living, Luke 12:6. I'm Wendy.
I'm Cadence. I'm Colton.
And we're so happy you're here. If you're joining us from Lianep's channel at DIY Beauty on Purpose, welcome. And I hope you'll consider hitting that subscribe button down below, as well as the little bell right next to it so that you can be notified every time I upload a brand new video. If you like these projects, don't forget to give them a thumbs up, comment, let me know what you think. And now, without further ado,
Let's get started.
For our first project, I'm going to be using a scrap piece of fence wood from when we had our fence repaired, and this was just left over, and it was really kind of naturally weathered because it had been outside. So I did give it a pretty good sanding just to get all of the ickies off, and then I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint in white. I added a little bit of water, but I really shouldn't have done that because there was already a lot of moisture in the wood. So I rubbed it down and then put some more undiluted paint on top of it. So now I'm going to go to my Cricut design space and I'm going to click on the text icon and it's going to bring up a text box. So I just typed in a capital N and then I'm going to decide which font I want to use. So there's a nice inventory of different fonts that are already downloaded into your Cricut design space. And so you can decide which ones you like and you can make it bigger to see what you want. I didn't like this one, so I'm going to go back up and I'm going to find another one. And I ended up using Everyday Fonts Big City. And so in order to get my letter to be the right size, I'm going to pull the little right hand circle to make it larger and smaller, and it keeps its proportion while you're doing that. So then once I get it to the right size, in order to not have to resize my next letter, I'm going to duplicate this one and then I'll change the letter in my text box. And that way all three of my letters are going to be the same size. So now once I get those all up, I'm going to press Make It, and it's going to take me to this screen. And I would have to do two separate cuts because this is a 12 by 12 mat, but I do have a 12 by 24 mat, so I'm going to put that as the setting, and then I'll be able to cut all three of those letters out at the same time. So here's my beautiful, beautiful Cricut machine, and when you open it, it's like opening the hood and angels sing. It's so pretty and shiny and beautiful. And so I'm going to be stenciling these letters, and so I put my stencil tape into my machine, and there's a little blinking light and instructions for every step that you take, so it makes it so easy. And so I push the go button and it starts cutting, and I did forget to change my settings, and so I did it for cardstock, which was a little bit too heavy, so it did go through the backing paper, but because this is a stencil, it's fine and I didn't have to recut it. So now I'm going to weed my letters, and in this case I'm going to be taking the letters out and leaving everything else. So I'm using my pen, which is just a little needle at the end of a pen, and pulling that vinyl off, and then I'm going to place my transfer tape on top of it and cut my letters apart. So now I pull off my backing paper, and you can see how sticky it is on the back, and it's a lower tack adhesive from Frisco Craft, and I'll have that linked in the description box below. But I'm just going to take a towel and dab it on there just to get some of the sticky off, and then I'm going to place the N at the top of my board, and then I'll leave a space for my O, which is going to be a wreath, and then I'll place my E and my L. Now I'm using my Cricut Explore Air 2, and I definitely do not have this machine mastered by any means. I would consider myself a beginner, so not really knowing how to use this just shows you how user-friendly it really is. Now I'm sure that a lot of you are going to be getting a Cricut for Christmas, and so if you go to the description box below, you'll find links to bundles and things in my Amazon store, and I thought this would be a perfect time to be sponsored by Cricut and to give you a really abbreviated tutorial to kind of get you started and excited to do your projects. So after I got all of my stencils in place, I'm just going to take a flat paintbrush and start dabbing on my Waverly chalk paint in ink. And I'm going to do it pretty lightly and leave some open spots and some splotchiness towards the middle, just so that it looks like it's been worn and not perfectly brand new. And since chalk paint dries quickly anyway, this is such a thin coat that it dries super quick, and I'm able to pull my transfer tape off right away, and it leaves a beautiful, smooth, perfect, crisp line. So now for my O, I'm going to take some of this really pretty frosty greenery from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to use my wire cutters to cut off some of the stems, and I'll just start curving them around and placing them all going in one direction. And then I'm going to use my paddle wire to attach those here and there. And then if any of that wire is showing, I'll just pull off an end piece and cover that up using my hot glue. So then I made a sweet little bow using the fold over method, and I'll link my bow tutorial in the description box below. And I'm using some Dollar Tree gingham ribbon in 5/8 inch. And then once I get that attached, I'm just gonna hot glue my entire wreath onto my board. And here it is, all finished, and I absolutely love how this turned out. It's so simple, but it's so super sweet. It's rustic and farmhouse looking, and I just love it, and I hope you guys like it too. So as you know, this is a Cricut sponsored video, and I'm using my Cricut Explore Air 2 today, but it's also in collaboration with my sweet friend Lianep over at DIY Beauty on Purpose, and you guys will really love her channel. She has all kinds of DIYs and high-end pieces that she makes and does everything on a budget. So after you're done here, head on over to her channel, and I'll have that video linked in the description box below. For our next project, we're going to be using this square wooden sign and a pack of the plastic snowflakes and some black poster board. So originally I had planned to pull out the backboard and paint that black, but it was not having any of that, and it was so secure and had some kind of alien space technology for glue that I just could not get it out. So instead I decided to paint the frame and a little bit of the backboard white, and then I'll put some poster board in the back and cut it down to the right size, and then using my hot glue I'll secure that to the back of my frame. Then I took my first snowflake, and I'm going to hot glue that right in the center and then place that down right onto the backboard. And then I'm going to take the little foam pieces that came on the back of those animals that were on the original sign, and I cut it in half, and that's going to be the lifter that I'll then glue in the center of that first snowflake to lift my second one. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the third one. And then for the middle, to cover up that foam, I'm going to use one of those wood stickers. I'll paint that white using my Waverly chalk paint in white and then hot glue that right to the middle. Now this comes in a pack of 3, so this was perfect for this project, and I wanted to have them a little bit skewed so that they weren't exactly on top of each other, and you can see a little bit of dimension in that snowflake. And here it is, all finished, and this is just so pretty in real life. It's like one of those infinity pictures that you see. I should have put this on a mirror. That would have been even better. But it was so simple and super quick, and as a perfect project that you can do for your last minute decor. But I love how this turned out, and I hope you guys like it too. For our next project, I'm going to be using this tag from Dollar Tree, and this is from the summertime, but I like this one because it's really long, and we're going to be using the back side. So all I did was just gave it a pretty quick and light coat of a dry brush effect, and I'm using my Waverly chalk paint in white, and I'll go back and finish the edges a little bit later, but I'm going to get some spackle also from the Dollar Tree and put that in a little plastic cup, and then I'm going to add some water to it, and I make it all nice and mushy and squishy, and this was so much fun. It was like kind of playing in the mud. And then I'm going to take my fingers and just start plopping it onto my sign, and I want my fingerprints to be in there, not necessarily my fingerprints, but the swipes of my fingers. And I want to try to make that into the shape of wings. And so I wasn't really sure how I was going to do this, and I used one of the Dollar Tree ornaments to kind of give me the shape, but it was looking a little bit too much like a heart, which would have been fine, but because the sign was so long, I wanted to make it be a little bit longer and look less rounded and more like angel wings. So I just played with that for a while, and when I say played, I really mean it. And just got them to the shape that I wanted. So now that I have my wings the size that I wanted, I'm going to measure the bottom portion to see how large to make my decal, which is going to say Gloria. And so I decided it was going to be 7 inches by 2.5 inches. So I'm going to go back to my Cricut design space, and I'm going to go on the home page and then push the button that says New Project. That's going to take me to my canvas, and then I'm going to spell out the word Gloria using that same process that we used before, where you hit the text icon and then you spell out your word in the text box. So I spelled out Gloria, and then I chose my font, which was Forestia Script or something like that, but I'll have that in the description box below. But once you spell out your word, you notice that the letters are a little too far away from each other. So what you have to do is highlight the word, and then you're going to hit the icon that says ungroup, and that will make it to where you can move each of those letters individually. So I'm going to scoochie those over until they're touching, and then I'm going to highlight the entire word, and then I'll go over to the right side and I'm going to group them. So once I get them into place, I'm going to click and drag a box over that and then group that section. And so that now becomes one movable word. Now you see over on the right side where it's got the individual letters, you have to weld them, otherwise it's going to cut into each of those letters individually, if that makes sense. And so this way, once you weld it, it all becomes one consecutive cut. And then to get it to the size that I need, I'm going to unlock it and drag it to the length and height that I need it to be. And then I'm going to hit make it up on the top right hand side, and then it's going to tell me what to do next. It'll show it as it's laid out onto the cutting mat. And there's two different kinds of cutting mats. Well, there's actually more, but these are the two that I have. And so you have a standard grip and a light grip. And I really like the blue one, which is the light grip, because it doesn't pull the backing sheet off or anything. So anyway, but either one works fine. So now I'm going to take my gold Cricut adhesive vinyl, and I'll have all of these products listed in the description box below, and I'm going to put it into my Explore Air 2, which also has some convenient little trays down at the bottom. This is so easy to use because everything blinks at you and tells you what to push next, so there's really not a lot of guesswork on this. So I'm just going to push the blinking button to tell it to go, and then it's going to start cutting my word out for me. And it cuts really fast, but so accurately. It's really amazing how it works like that. So anyway, I'm going to cut my word out, and then I'm going to pull off the excess vinyl from the backing sheet, and then I'll weed it out using Cricut's pretty little weeder. I'll pull out the insides of my letters, and then I'm going to take my transfer tape, put it on top of that, and then using my Cricut squeegee, I'm going to make it all nice and flat, get out all of the bubbles, and then pull the backing sheet off of the back, and then place that on my sign. And then I'll pull my transfer tape up off of that, and then it is done. So now for my angel head, I'm just drawing kind of a circle with a flat top, and then I'm using some Waverly chalk paint in hazelnut and plaster, and just making sure that I get kind of a sweet little pointed chin at the bottom. And then I'm just going to use my elephant and white, and I guess just kind of scribble on as I'm painting for the hair. And I'm making kind of a halo at the top. I don't know, it kind of looks more like my 80s hair when I got married. It actually looks a lot like my wedding picture. Anyway, I'm just making it kind of a, what is this type of art called? Impressionism, maybe? Maybe abstract, I don't know. But I'm just giving it the idea or the hint of being an angel, and her hair, her halo, and her dress. So there's no perfect or straight lines. It's just kind of dreamy and angel-like. So now I'm going to take my folk art acrylic paint in pure gold, and I'm going to start highlighting her wings. And originally I had just planned to do a light dry brush on this and just leave it at that, but I wasn't quite happy with the look of it. It just kind of looked a little bit dirty and not so angelic. And so I went ahead and did a whole lot of the gold, and you could leave it like this too. It's pretty, but I still didn't like it. So I went in a third time and went back with my white and then softened those wings up. And I think the layering really made it look super pretty and come to life. And then once I was happy with my wings, I went back in and highlighted the edges of my sign with just the pure white chalk paint. And then for my handle, I'm going to take a couple of beads and paint those gold as well. And these are the beads that I get on Amazon. They're 200 1-inch beads for $17.99, which is actually a little more expensive than they used to be. They keep going up and down in price. So now I'm going to take some of that wired jute twine from the Dollar Tree and feed it through from the back and come up to the front and then make a little knot. And then I'm going to cut that off and then feed on my beads. I'm going to do a natural natural color and then the gold and then a natural, and then on the other side the exact same thing, and then feed that through to the other side, make that knot, and it's all in place. And then I'm going to take a little bit of the 5/8 inch ribbon from Dollar Tree that's the burlap or linen looking, and then it has the gold on the outside, and I'm going to make a sweet little bow by folding it over in thirds, and then take a piece of jute twine from my handy dandy jute twine feeder. I've been getting a lot of questions about my jute twine canister, so I will link the video for that DIY in the description box below. And then I'm just going to tie that to the top of my sign, and it's all done. And here she is, all finished, and I think she's so super sweet and angelic and beautiful, and she has that bit of sparkly gold, and I just love how she turned out. I already have given it away, but I love her, and I hope you like it too. For our final DIY, I'll be using this old window frame that I got from my sweet friend Mary Little, who also gave me the shadow box cabinet that I used in another DIY, and I'll have that video linked in the description box below if you haven't seen it. And I love this so much, and all I did was took my Waverly chalk paint in white, and I'm going to paint that with just one coat was all it took because it was already white, but I just wanted to make it a little bit brighter. And so I took a piece of scrap wood and I'm going to paint that white as well. So then again, using my Cricut Explore Air 2, I cut out a decal that says, "O Night Divine, O Night When Christ Was Born." And this time I'm using my red matte vinyl, and then I'm just going to go through the same process of putting my transfer tape on top and then pulling the backing sheet off of it, and then I'm going to put that onto my long board. I did this in two separate pieces because I wanted to use my 24-inch cutting mat, and so I put one line on one side and then one line on the other, and then only had to cut one time. So you could just go without a mat at all and just let it do the whole thing all in one line, but I just like doing it where it's a little bit more manageable in two pieces anyway, and I'm just more comfortable with the mat. So now I'm going to use one of Dollar Tree's red cardinal ornaments, some burlapfabric.com ribbon, and then 5 of these Walmart berry picks that I think are so pretty, and they were only 98 cents. And so I'm just gonna hot glue these right into the middle of my frame. I'll do 2 on one side and 2 on the other. And for the second one, I'm just gonna tuck that right under that first one. And I'm using my Dollar Tree makeup spatula to push that into the glue. I get a lot of questions about this. A sweet viewer sent that to me, and I know some of you have had a hard time finding them. So you can also use a little mini spatula from the kitchen area. Anyway, now I'm gonna make a sweet little bow, and I'm using my burlapfabric.com ribbon. And so I'm gonna start about 2 or 3 inches from the edge and make my first twist and hold that with my thumb and forefinger. And then I'm gonna go up and make a loop, and then when I come back, I'm gonna twist it again and hold it in that same position. And I'm gonna do that 4 times on each side of my bow. And I'm holding it really tight in the middle there with my thumb and forefinger. And then I had a sweet viewer explain, I always used to just make one tail on the side, and so she explained that if I just pull that one piece all the way up and make one big huge loop at the bottom, then when I go to take my chenille stem and feed that through that top loop that I'm going to twist over on top of itself and then go in between my second and third finger when I'm passing that chenille stem through, I'm actually holding that big loop at the bottom that will become my tails, and I'm going to cut that in half, and now I have 2 tails instead of just the one that I always had before. So that was such a great tip, and I'm so happy. That's a life changer right there. So now I'm going to take my loops and I'm going to pull one to each side, going in different directions and just getting them all puffy and pretty and perky. And then I'll dovetail those edges, and I'm going to cut off the back end of my chenille stem, or the excess, and then I'll glue that right in between all of those snowy berries. And then I'll take my tails and I'll feed them through that, it's not greenery, my whitery. So now I'm going to take my 5th pick and I'm going to cut that down to the size that I need, and I'm going to hot glue that to the inside of my bottom pane over to the left, and I'm going to use quite a bit of hot glue so that I can make sure that that stays in place. And then I'm going to take some hooks, and I'm using some eye hooks as well as some open-ended hooks, and I'm going to place 2 at the bottom of my window, and I just push those in and twist them around, and I want those facing straight out. And then on my piece of wood, I'm going to make a pencil mark where those are, and then place my open hooks in there by wiggling a little hole and then twisting them around. And then I used my needle nose pliers, which is not really the right tool to use for this, but it was handy. And so I'm going to twist those so that they're facing back, and then I'll be able to hook that onto the bottom of my frame. And then I'm going to take my red cardinal and I'm going to hot glue him onto the berries. So now to hang this, I'm going to use a sawtooth hanger, and I'm just going to take the tiny little screws that come with it and screw that into the back. I should have done this before I put all of the pretties on the front, so I had to put it in between my couch and my coffee table so I wouldn't crunch that all up. And here it is, all finished, and oh, I love this so much. I think it is so pretty and so white and Christmassy. And the red cardinal is traditionally the Christmas bird because it's bright red and it's supposed to bring hope and happiness in a time when it's white and dreary, even though I don't think white is very dreary, but when it's all snowy and cold, that's supposed to be the hope. But you can also correlate this with the purity white of Jesus and then the blood he shed for our salvation. I hope you enjoyed all of these projects, and if you did, don't forget to give them a thumbs up, comment, let me know what you think. Don't forget to check out DIY Beauty on Purpose. Stop by, give her some love, and let her know I sent you. If you're hoping to find a Cricut Explore Air 2 under your tree this year, you might want to think about copying the links and maybe sending that to somebody who could make that happen. I actually had a husband message me and ask me for the information so that he could get one for his wife. If you're not already, I hope you'll consider hitting that subscribe button down below, as well as the little bell right next to it so that you can be notified every time I upload a brand new video. Remember the reason for the season. I hope everyone has a blessed day, and remember to always be the light. Bye.